A joint task force in the United States recently rescued 200 missing children in an operation called We Will Find You Too. Sounds like the name of a blockbuster movie, right? But no, this is real life and an incredible story that you don't want to miss. Hi, I'm Regis, and if you're looking for some incredible stories from around the world, you have found the right spot. We've dedicated this space on our channel solely to positivity. From court rulings protecting the rights of nature in Ecuador to finding a cure for the autoimmune disease lupus, here are 7 good news stories that'll be sure to brighten your outlook on life. For our first story, we delve into the world of conservation, where golden parakeets have returned to the wild in Brazil after being extinct for 100 years. This impressive-looking bird with striking yellow plumage lives in the Brazilian Amazon. Ironically, its vibrant color, which has made it so popular, is also why it's so highly sought after in the illegal wildlife trafficking world. Deforestation is also causing their numbers to rapidly decline as their habitats are being destroyed. Now, there are less than 10,000 left in the wild, and they're considered locally extinct in many regions. Golden parakeets are crucial in maintaining the Amazon's incredible ecosystem, as they disperse seeds of native plants, like the famous acai. So for all of you who have hopped on the acai trend recently, this cause is one you can definitely get behind. Thankfully, groups like the Lymington Foundation, located in Belém, have been boosting the numbers of birds through breeding programs. In 2017, they started the first reintroduction efforts. Before being released, the golden parakeets went through an adaptation period to learn the necessary survival skills for the wild. So far, they've released 50 golden parakeets into the wild, with the aim of reintroducing 50 more over the next 2 years. Conservationists say that this has been a big success so far, and that the birds have adapted well. Some have even reproduced, which is fantastic news. The hope is that the population will increase naturally and spread across the Amazon, soaring through the skies once more. What a sight that would be, right? And 100 seems to be the lucky number today, as wheat samples from 100 years ago could help to feed the world's growing population. Collecting wheat samples from across the planet is not your everyday job, and neither was it 100 years ago, when this became Arthur Watkins' life mission. He realized that the advancements in plant breeding were destroying the genetic diversity of wheat. Suspecting that this would cause issues in the future, he collected samples of grains before they were lost entirely. These days, this collection is now being called a genetic gold mine. Now, I hear what you're thinking. It's just wheat. What's the big deal? Well, wheat is a staple food for about 3 billion people, but climate change has really impacted crop yields, causing shortages around the world. The huge genetic variation in Watkins' collection will allow strains of wheat to be developed that can produce healthy yields in today's extreme conditions. So why didn't scientists make use of Watkins' collection before, since it's been around for like 100 years? To answer your question, wheat is surprisingly very complex. I know, but bear with me. It's made up of 17 billion units of DNA. Just for context, humans have only about 3 billion units of DNA. This made it extremely challenging and expensive to sequence. But the development of large-scale DNA sequencing has been a game changer for the wheat industry. A recent collaboration between the United Kingdom and China successfully sequenced all 827 types of wheat in the Watkins collection. Their findings were honestly astonishing. Modern wheat varieties only use 40% of the genetic diversity found in the collection. This means that there are many possibilities for developing new, hardy wheat strains that can sustainably feed people. For example, scientists are developing strains that can thrive in salty soil and others that are resistant to various types of diseases. We're honestly in Watkins' debt here, as this discovery wouldn't have been possible without his noble efforts a whole century ago. From one historic event to another, where a court makes a historic ruling that pollution has violated the rights of a river. We're thrilled to hear that a court in Ecuador has sided with nature over the contaminating and destructive actions of humans in the area. Now, you may be surprised to learn that Ecuador was actually the first country to recognize the rights of nature in its national constitution back in 2008. This allowed the Kitu-Kara indigenous people and activists to file a complaint on behalf of the Machangara River, which runs through Quito, the capital city. The river has been extremely contaminated by sewage, chemicals, untreated wastewater, and various types of rubbish. Studies have even indicated that water quality is similar to that of the sewers in a city like Paris, which is honestly shocking and more than a little disgusting. The activists had to prove that the river's rights had been violated. It's safe to say they succeeded though, as they showed that 98% of the wastewater that the municipality releases into the river is untreated. With this clear evidence, the judge ruled that the municipality was responsible for polluting the river and had violated its legal rights. The government was ordered to clean up the river immediately, and as you can imagine, the activists were elated, declaring that it was a historic decision. But before we get too carried away in celebrating this win, you should know that the Quito municipality has appealed this ruling. The good news is that while waiting for the court's decision, they still have to comply with the current decision anyways. Even better news is that the construction of 3 new wastewater treatment facilities has already been approved. A great first step to cleaning up the river. Now, this is a really powerful example of the impact of such a radical step as giving nature legal rights. It can successfully protect the world's incredible resources that we depend on for survival. Now, speaking of what we need to survive, the immune system also plays a big role in this, leading us to our next story. Scientists have found a cause of the autoimmune disease lupus and a possible cure. Lupus affects millions of people worldwide, but with a staggering imbalance between genders, as 9 out of 10 people with the disease are women. It can seriously damage organs like the kidneys, brain, and heart, and at the moment, there is no cure. Lupus has gained a lot more attention recently, with celebrities like Selena Gomez opening up about their struggle with the disease. But if you still find it confusing, don't worry, you're not alone in that. Let's quickly go through the basics so you have a baseline understanding. Our bodies have powerful immune systems to detect and attack invading microbes. But if the detect stage fails, the immune system may see a normal, healthy cell as an invading microbe and attack it. This is how most autoimmune diseases work. They're self-directed. With lupus, the immune system can target anywhere in the body, making it really complex and in some cases deadly. Symptoms can vary hugely from just a rash to needing an organ transplant. As the cause has been largely unknown, the treatments that doctors recommend often don't work and have very serious side effects. And that's why finding the root cause of this disease is so crucial. So the news that US researchers have done this is truly groundbreaking. It will allow better treatments and a potential cure to be developed. Okay, now that you've got the basics, let's strap in for a quick science lesson as we explain the actual cause. After comparing blood samples, researchers found that changes in certain molecules were turning the protein aryl hydrocarbon receptor, or AHR, inactive. AHR controls how our cells respond to threats like bacteria and pollutants. If the AHR is inactive, our body produces too many immune cells, which can attack healthy cells. Since discovering this, researchers at the Harvard Medical School have found a way to correct the problem. They developed AHR activating molecules, adding them to the blood samples of lupus patients. Incredibly, the results showed that this reduced the production of harmful immune cells. And this means that they found a potential cure for lupus. What a milestone! The medical world is understandably super excited, and I'm sure that everyone suffering from the disease is as well. We look forward to hearing more updates soon as the developmental process for this new potential treatment continues. Now, we move on from developments in reducing one leading cause of disease to another, as we learned that since the announcement of the sugar tax in the United Kingdom, children's sugar intake has halved. In April 2016, the UK government announced that it would introduce a tax on soft drinks containing added sugar. This gave manufacturers time to reduce the amount of sugar in their drinks before the tax came into effect back in 2018. The aim was to reduce childhood obesity, as about a quarter of 10 and 11-year-olds in the UK are obese. And it does look like the sugar tax has been effective, whether directly or indirectly. A recent research study looked into it and found that the amount of sugar children consumed from soft drinks dropped by nearly half compared to the years before the announcement. For adults, there was also a reduction of about a third. Although the sugar tax can't take all the credit for this reduction in sugar consumption, the study's findings are encouraging and suggest that it's impacting the soft drink industry. This success is likely to pave the way for the introduction of sugar taxes in other areas of the world. Now, this is needed because despite the big reductions so far, the amount of sugar we consume is still way too high and well above the recommended guidelines. Now, on average, adults are eating about 100 grams of sugar per day, when the guidelines recommend no more than 30. This guideline reduces to 24 grams for children under 11 and 19 grams for children under 7. Experts are pushing for a sugar tax to be introduced for cereals, as they're the main source of added sugars for children aged 4 to 10. For example, a 50-gram serving of Cocoa Pops or Crunchy Nut Cornflakes, two of the UK's most popular cereals, contains a whopping 17.5 grams of sugar. This is nearly the entire recommended amount for young children just on breakfast alone. No wonder there's a sugar consumption issue. Clearly, we've got a long way to go to reduce our sugar intake to healthy levels, and taxation won't work on its own, but it's still important to celebrate the small victories. Now, the medical world is probably in quite the celebratory mood for pretty much this entire episode, as our next story is that the first nasal spray to treat emergency allergic reactions is close to being approved. The European Medicines Agency has recommended that Ernefi be marketed in the European Union. This will be the first nasal spray for emergency treatment of allergic reactions and can be used instead of an injection, a game changer. You might not actually realize how big of a deal this new treatment method is, so imagine this. Your friend is having an allergic reaction. Would you rather have to inject a needle or just use a nasal spray to help them out? Exactly. Having to punch a needle into someone or yourself can be quite daunting. You already know how I feel about that. So what is anaphylactic shock exactly, and how does the treatment work? Well, anaphylactic shock is the most severe form of an allergic reaction. It can come about very quickly after someone is exposed to an allergen, within minutes or even seconds. It causes your blood pressure to drop and your airways to narrow, stopping you from breathing. This can be deadly if not treated immediately. At the moment, immediate treatment involves an injection of epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, which improves blood flow and makes breathing easier. Now, these injections can be very effective, but the problem is that people often wait too long before injecting themselves or someone else. This can be because they're scared of the long needle, guilty as charged, or they don't know how to use the device properly. And this can lead to disastrous consequences. Now you know why the development of a nasal spray is so important, as it's much easier to administer than a big needle. After conducting clinical trials and studies, researchers found that both treatment methods, the nasal spray and the injection, produced similarly effective results, which is really promising news for this new treatment. Now, the medical community is just waiting for the European Commission to grant approval before they can make this much-anticipated nasal spray available to the public. But before we continue with this week's most important story, we have some massive news to share. As you already know, we publish our weekly dose of good news here on YouTube every weekend. But with just one video per week, there are so many more positive news stories that we can't possibly cover them all in these episodes. So, over the past few months, the whole good news team, including Lewis, Lucas, Raphael, and Freddie, have been secretly working on something. And today, we're super excited to announce the Good News newsletter. Twice a week, every Monday and Friday, we'll send you a beautifully crafted email packed with uplifting news. This way, you can both start and end your week on a high note. You can now try the newsletter for free and see if you like it. If you do like it, which we're sure that you will, you can then subscribe to the premium version to receive even more good news twice per week. We would really appreciate your support with this, as it'll help us to continue producing good news content and spread more positive stories all around the world. Thank you so much for your support, and now let's get back to this week's best news story. Our final good news story today is sure to move everyone, as US Marshals find 200 missing children during Operation We Will Find You 2. I'm sure that all the parents watching this can agree that the idea of your child going missing fills you with terror, so this story really pulls at your heartstrings. Following last year's successful We Will Find You operation, the US Marshals Service joined up once more with government agencies to target locations across the country with high clusters of missing children. They took on some of the most difficult cases, where children were vulnerable to exploitation, such as sex trafficking and sexual and physical abuse. If you look into the epidemic of missing children in America, you'll quickly realize the importance of this operation. Just listen to this statistic. In 2023 alone, 375,000 children were reported missing across the United States. So it's heartwarming to hear that they found and rescued 200 of these missing children, including 173 endangered runaways. The youngest child recovered was just 5 months old, which is unthinkable. What these children must have been through is beyond words, which makes it extra special that they've been found. The USMS director stated how locating and recovering the nation's critically missing children was one of the most sacred missions. And honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's so uplifting to hear about this positive outcome for the 200 children, their families, and their communities. Hopefully, we can share more stories about these incredible We Will Fund You operations in future Good News episodes. Well, that's all from us here at Good News today. In the comments below, let us know what you thought of the stories that we covered today and which ones you're the most excited to hear more about. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.